Balls, bro.
The Idolmaster Cinderella Girls is an anime that I believe deserves a lot more attention than it gets. Like, it feels like nobody on the internet talks about this show, especially here on YouTube. Well, there are videos that do talk about it, but they're,
What's going on, guys? Taki King here.
How's it going, guys? It's me, Domo, here today with a new anime.
When I was getting into anime, the way I discovered new shows was by watching anime YouTube videos. Hell, even the reason why I got into anime in the first place was because of a YouTube video I watched. It's because of these videos that I discovered so many shows like Anohana, Fate Zero, and The Idolmaster. I had no idea what The Idolmaster was until I watched a full anime video about it. There are so many videos that talk about this show, and yet there are only a few that ever mention its younger sibling. Call me crazy, but I believe that this is the reason why nobody talks about Cinderella Girls. There are no videos about it. So in hopes of getting more people to talk about one of my favorite animes of all time, I've decided to take on the duty of making its first decent video. So, for those who don't know me, well, first of all, hello, my name is Suki, and this is the world's first decent video about the Idolmaster Cinderella Girls. If you don't know what Cinderella Girls is, probably because there aren't any watchable videos about it, it's kind of hard to explain what it is without bringing up the franchise. So, The Idolmaster, you may or may not have heard of it, is a Japanese multimedia franchise created by that is mostly known for its games that are one half idol raising sims, and one half, probably a rhythm game. At some point, the second game, titled The Idolmaster 2, got an anime adaptation in 2011 that didn't involve its idols piloting mechs. And yes, that was a thing, look it up. You might have heard about this anime because people who knew how to pirate Sony Vegas 7 actually made videos about it and, you know, are still making videos about how it's the best show of all time. And yeah, it kind of is.
Yes, I am putting what I used to call idol trash on the same level as all of these incredible stories.
It had a likable cast, a good story, great animation, and a bunch of memorable moments that range from funny to emotional, all put together with some great direction. It was also a more realistic take on idols, showcasing aspects of the profession that didn't involve singing or dancing. And it even included a character like the producer, who was pretty important to the show. The Idolmaster has since sort of become the standard for what a good idol anime should look like, alongside Love Live, which, by the way, sorry to like the 3 people who were looking forward to my Nijigasaki video I promised last time, but I don't feel like talking about an anime I hate right now, so the Idolmaster franchise is split into a bunch of different branches, which include Million Live, Side M, Shiny Colors, and Cinderella Girls, which was the next branch to get an anime adaptation. And nobody I knew talked about it when it came out. Also yes, this is the branch with the funny step song and the pink hair girl who calls herself trash. For the longest time, I always thought that the Cinderella Girls anime wasn't all that good, because everyone I knew who loved the first anime didn't say a single thing about it. However, a year or two ago, I finally decided to watch the 2011 anime, and I was immediately told by some friends to go watch Cinderella Girls afterwards. So after being stuck in on-hold limbo for 4 years, I pulled it out from there and watched the entire thing. And to my surprise,
I'm feeling a 10 on this thing. A 10.
And it slowly became one of my favorite animes of all time. One of the reasons why I consider it to be one of my favorites is just because I love the princess theme the show has. I mean, my favorite anime of all time is Go Princess Precure, so of course between the 2 Idolmaster animes I picked the one called Cinderella Girls. But another reason why I like it so much is because I think it's just as good as the 2011 anime, and in some cases, I think it's a better show. However, there are parts of it where it's not, like in the beginning. While the first episode of Cinderella Girls is actually an amazing episode as well as a great hook to the show, episodes 2 to 7 don't do a great job at keeping you engaged, and a lot of that has to do with the characters. While you might like characters like Uzuki, Rin, and maybe even Mio, you'll probably dislike everybody else. They're either really annoying or just not that interesting. Honestly, I wouldn't fault anyone for dropping the show after episode 4 because of them. If somehow Miku's cat noises didn't cause you to stop watching the show, then Miu's depression arc might do just the trick because it's kind of not good. It is, without a doubt, the worst part of the show. And while I do think the story of the arc is actually pretty good, its direction was not so much. Like, it was so in your face about Miu's disappointment and grief that it felt like the show really wanted you to see her in despair while memories played in the background. You know, her arc was so bad that one of my friends, who was the closest thing I had to an Idolmaster expert on my Discord, told me that Miu is one of the least liked members of New Generations because of it. And while I do think it's dumb to hate on a fictional character that much because of one bad arc, it just shows you how bad these first episodes are, and are probably, if not definitely, the reason why most people didn't give Cinderella Girls much of a chance, including me. I mentioned earlier that Cinderella Girls was in on hold limbo for 4 years, and as that would imply, I did watch the show back when it came out, only just to put it on hold for the reasons I just stated. I always dread watching the first couple of hours of this show. The episodes have not gotten any better over time, but I power through them because afterwards the show gets pretty good. After Miu's depression arc is resolved, Cinderella Girls decides to actually be a good anime and show off its strengths, like how it manages its large cast of characters. Cinderella Girls has 15 characters. I thought it was 11. And the way it chooses to explore them is by using something that a lot of idol animes like to use: character focus episodes. I think these kinds of episodes work really well in something like an idol anime because we get to spend a lot of time with these characters and get to know them better. But something I've noticed with shows that use these kinds of episodes is that they have this bad habit of putting too much focus on a single character, to the point where it feels like the rest of the cast just doesn't exist. In fact, this is something that the original anime suffers from. Characters who don't get their focus episodes in the beginning just kind of fade into the background, and don't get that much screen time unless it's a group episode. Speaking of group episodes, another issue I have with this habit is that we miss out on seeing the group dynamics of the cast. I mean, I love watching these episodes about my favorite idols, but if the anime is about a group of them, then the thing I want to see is them being a group. Cinderella Girls is one of the few idol animes that I have watched to avoid these issues. One smart thing that the show did was put all of its characters into subunits and have the focus episodes be about those units. That way, everyone got some screen time and didn't have to wait 12 plus episodes to tell us that they just like to eat food. However, something else that Cinderella Girls did was that it always found ways to involve characters who weren't the focus of each episode. And this added a lot to the show, as seeing them interact with whoever was the focus of the episode showed us a bit of their group dynamic, and it also gave us a bit of insight into characters who haven't gotten their episodes yet. Before anyone yells at me, yes, I know, the 2011 anime also did this, but it felt like some of its characters got more screen time than others, while in Cinderella Girls, everyone got their fair share, except for Rina. But even characters like her still get scenes that flesh them out a bit. One scene that I liked from the show was one from Ronko's episode, where Anya's walking back to the dorms with her and trying to figure out why she seems down. Even though her Japanese isn't all that great, and Ronko has a weird way of talking, she still wants to be a good friend and try to cheer her up. It's a pretty minor scene from the anime, but it shows us a bit of Anya's character, before she gets any focus in the story, and we even get to see what her relationship is like with Ronko, which actually plays a part in both of their developments. What I also liked about seeing the other characters in these episodes was that it made the world feel more alive. Like everybody's still going about their day even if they aren't in the spotlight. For example, in Miku and Rina's episode, it actually starts off with New Generations doing a photo shoot, only for them to notice the two arguing with each other. Again, it's a pretty minor scene, but it adds a little something to the show, and it gives a bit of screen time to characters who are currently taking a backseat in the story. I wish more shows tried to include as many characters in its focus episodes. It's a very smart and efficient way to manage a large cast of characters, and I found it really impressive that Cinderella Girls was able to pull it off. Especially when you take into account that they even included the other idols from the Cinderella Girls branch into the story. Speaking of which, one common joke about the Cinderella Girls branch is that it should have been the one called Million Live, because of the absurd number of idols 346 Pro has under its wing. According to the wiki, there are 190 original characters in this branch. I don't know about the original part, but there are definitely a lot of idols in Cinderella Girls, and a few of them make appearances in the show, from brief cameos to episodes just straight up about them. You would think that this would make the show feel crowded just for the sake of fan service, but Cinderella Girls did a good job at making sure that they didn't hog up too much screen time. So it never felt like there were too many characters on screen. It also never felt like they were just there for fan service, because they actually contributed to the story and were actually involved in some of the cast's development. I'm glad that we got to see them interact with the main characters of the show, for the same reasons why I like seeing the main characters interact with each other. This is a bit of a weird and admittedly normie-ish comparison to make, but it sort of reminded me why I enjoy watching Hololive VTubers. Their interactions with each other are fun to watch, but it also makes them feel like a sort of family, especially when you see them help each other out, making this big idol company feel less like a big idol company. Something I've noticed with the 346 Pro idols in the show was that it always felt like they had a lot of personality and character to them. And I don't know if that's because of the writing or the voice acting, but the side characters voiced by famous seiyus didn't feel like side characters voiced by famous seiyus. But, you know, actual characters who just happen to be voiced by someone like Hayami Saori. I'm hoping I fucked up that pronunciation. Fuck. While still on the topic of characters, there is one character that I forgot to talk about in my first draft of this video until my friend pointed it out. The producer. How the fuck did I forget to talk about the producer in this video? The producer has been a staple of the Idolmaster franchise, being the person you play as in the games and having been featured in all of the Idolmaster animes. I recently rewatched the original show for this video, and while watching it I realized that the original producer character, who everybody loves, wasn't that interesting of a character. He isn't bad, but he's just a nice guy, and that's about it. The producer in Cinderella Girls, on the other hand, actually was a good character. Even though his whole shtick was that he doesn't express any emotions, that one trait gives him more of a personality than the original producer. He even has a bit of a backstory that explains why he acts the way he does. Something I noticed while watching the two shows back to back was that the producer in Cinderella Girls was a lot more involved in the focus episodes. Because of this, we actually got to see him get closer to the girls and learn how to be a better producer for them. I don't dislike the original anime producer, I like him just as much as everybody else. But I've much preferred the producer of Cinderella Girls because he was more of an interesting character to follow, since he was, actually fleshed out. I also like the staff characters in the show. Their inclusion gave the 346 Pro company a bit of a personality, kinda like the 346 Pro idols. One character that my Idolmaster friend wanted me to specifically mention was the manager. I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot about the president from the last anime, who served a similar purpose as the manager. And as that would imply, I liked the Cinderella Girls character a lot more. The president felt like he didn't add much to his show, while here the manager clearly had a reason to be there, giving the producer some advice, and giving us a bit of insight into his and Mishiro's thinking, who I'll talk about later. By the way, can we get a round of applause for Chihiro? Thanks for the support. Earlier I mentioned that the 346 Pro idols gave the company a bit of a personality like the staff. Their unique personalities and gimmicks made the building feel like a sort of wonderland. And I think their inclusion also made the world of idols feel, big and exciting. And I think that fits really well with the whole fairy tale aspect of the show. Portraying idols as fairy tale princesses is not exactly the hardest thing to do. I mean, a kid can easily find the parallels, but the way Cinderella Girls did it was quite clever. Something I realized about this show after rewatching it a bunch of times is that it's very grounded in reality. And part of that is due to the visuals being more realistic. They're definitely a lot more tamer in comparison to the 2011 anime. I just pulled up an episode from that show, and in like every scene, there's at least one character doing the goofiest cartoon shit ever. In an average episode of Cinderella Girls, while you might get a funny face or a dramatic zoom, everything just kinda stays on point. Girls don't just suddenly turn into like blobs. I don't think anyone would argue that the show looks ugly or has bad animation. In fact, I think you would have to be crazy to say that. But some people have said that Cinderella Girls feels very soulless, because characters aren't as blobby as before. And while I get where they're coming from, I don't think they understand that the animation is like this for a reason. Cinderella Girls looks normal on purpose, because it's supposed to contrast and heighten the scenes where it doesn't look normal. I mean, look at this scene where Uzuki tells Rin why she wants to be an idol and does this. It's an iconic scene from the show, and the reason why it's so iconic isn't just because it looks beautiful, but because there's nothing else from this episode that looks anything like it, so it stands out, and feels sorta magical because of how different it looks. Another example of this is when New Generations perform in their first live. They jump out from the stage and see the world suddenly light up. It's a stark contrast to the scenes before, which were devoid of color. And seeing them back to back helped better convey the excitement and thrill these girls are experiencing right now, as if they were in a fairy tale. Maybe calling it clever is giving the show too much credit, but I really like the way the show handled its visuals. Sorry, I have something in my throat. Fuck. enough to make it feel like a fairy tale. And that's what I found interesting about Cinderella Girls. It was able to make its story feel like a fairy tale even though it involves quite a bit of the businessy side of being an idol. It really puts you into the perspective of these characters, who view these idols as real-life princesses. Not just with its visuals, but with its direction and especially its soundtrack. So you get this nice middle ground where you get to see the business side of being an idol, minus the dark shit, while also having the magical experience of being one, minus the dark shit. The story itself is mainly focused on the girls and their development. It's the usual stuff of them becoming more mature, learning more about themselves, and hard work pays off. However, I found myself really engaged with it not only because of its storytelling, but because I slowly came to like these characters I disliked since the beginning. Yeah, that's kind of the weird silver lining of having unlikable characters at the start. Seeing them go from unbearable to someone I wanted to cheer on was so satisfying to watch. Miku started out as one of the most annoying characters to me, but after seeing her mature over the series and act less like a brat, she became one of my favorites. There's also Anya, who had nothing really going for her, until she gets this interesting story about how she wants to join Executive Mashiro's new project because she thinks she might discover something new by participating in it. It was nice to see her finally do something for herself and not just follow Minami around. Speaking of Executive Mashiro, I really liked her as an antagonist. Just like how I'm a sucker for princesses, I'm a sucker for characters who are just there to be dicks. Though, and I feel like I've said this many times already, I liked her more than the antagonist from the last anime. There's a big difference between villains who do things out of malice and those who do things and just don't give a fuck about what everyone else thinks about it. Goddamn Sigma female. Her character design is great too, literally looking like an evil queen straight out of a fairy tale wearing a business dress. Not sure what the general consensus is on her, but to anyone who wasn't a fan, just think of her as a sort of necessary evil for what most people would agree is the best part of the show, the second half of it. I really like the stories that came from the second half of the show because of how they built off from where the characters were at by the end of episode 13. For example, For example, this girl realizes that her whole chant that she's been using since episode 9 begins to hold her back from overcoming her shyness. Another example that I think gets overlooked is Miyu's second arc. It unfortunately gets overshadowed by her first arc, but it's actually a really nice follow-up, where we get to see her learn from her previous mistakes. I also like that we got to see how much the producer has changed since the beginning. There's actually a scene in Miyu's episode where she runs out of the room after Rin tells her that she might join Mashiro's new project, and when the producer sees her, he runs after her without a second thought. Of course, I can't talk about this half of the show without mentioning Uzuki's episodes. Anyone who has seen Cinderella Girls knows that this is one of, if not the best part of the show. I thought the whole premise of her story was really interesting because of how she was shown throughout the anime. Which, by the way, if you want me to call your writing interesting, just have a character who doesn't do shit for the entire series, and then have their focus episodes be about how they haven't done shit since episode 1. They did it in Q and I thought it was clever, they did it here and I thought it was interesting, so yeah. But my easily pleased buys aside, I think this was the best way they could have done a dramatic arc for a character like her, since she didn't have a troubled past or anything like that, and also fit really well with the show's themes. I love the visual storytelling in these episodes. I mean, the anime in general just has nice visual storytelling, but I think these episodes are where I started to really notice them. We see her literally progress backwards and end up in her old dance classroom, doing the same turn she was doing at the beginning of the show. One scene that everyone remembers from Cinderella Girls is the one in the park where Uzuki tells Rin and Miyu that her smile doesn't make her special, and that she'll never be special, and begins to break down into tears. It's one of the most heart-wrenching scenes from an Idolmaster anime. Her episodes invoke a lot of strong emotions within viewers, and I'm gonna be a bit of a Seiyu shill here, but I like to think that a lot of it has to do with I can't pronounce these names for the life of me. I like to think that a lot of that has to do with Ohashi Ayaka's acting. I love that they recorded a special version of her singing Smiling for episode 24. You get to hear a bit of Uzuki's emotions along with her singing imperfections. By the way, this scene right here is a scene that everyone remembers from the show because it's unironically peak idol anime moment. And you know what? The Idolmaster Cinderella Girls is peak idol anime, in my opinion, of course. It's got characters I like, characters I didn't expect to like, a good story, more importantly good pacing, it looks great, has nice direction except for Miu's episode. Banger music, Cinderella Girls music always goes hard, except we don't get too attached to some of the songs in the show. It made me cry while I was watching it in my college's library, true story, and the title of episode 13 is literally called It's Time to Become Cinderella Girls.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
Name drops and irrelevant college story aside, this show is genuinely amazing, and I'm glad that I got to be the guy to tell you that in the form of a decent video. Thanks for watching till the end because that tells me that the video was actually watchable. I wouldn't say that this is the best video about Cinderella Girls, hence the decent in the title, but in comparison to the other videos,
Except for me.
yeah, I could say it's the best one so far. But if you think that this video wasn't decent, like, at all, then please, make a better one. I'll admit that I'm not the best person to be talking about this show. For one, I don't play the games, and two, I like Rent-A-Girlfriend, so my opinions are, This is not okay. I know there are fans out there who love the show just as much as me, and if they're watching this, please make a video about this show. I want there to be more videos about it on YouTube, so when I type Cinderella Girls, I don't just get figure reviews and Wilson JJ videos. If this video is the reason why we might get an 8-hour long Pyro Utopia style video that overanalyzes every scene from the show, then I have accomplished my goal, and I hope to see those videos soon because Cinderella Girls deserves them.